Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode number 74 of Preston Jensen's podcast. If you're new here, I'm your host, Preston. Tonight, we're going to talk about a lot of things. I'm going to kind of ramble on about some of the stuff I've been doing, some of the products I've ordered, and why I'm excited about the future of this channel and the drone industry. Last night, I actually took my Recurrent Part 107 test. This is the second time I've taken the Recurrent test, but this time around it was much different. They just recently passed where you are able to take your Recurrent test online, and I wasn't, my other Recurrent test I had taken within 2 years. If you're new to drone pilot or the Part 107 test, you have to take a Recurrent test every 2 years or 24 months. The first test is a lot different than the Recurrent test that you take online now. When I first started the Recurrent test, you'd still have to go to the testing center. You'd still have to pay at least $150, at least in my area. And for me, it was a big hassle because first off, you'd have to take a lot of time to study because it included a lot more areas than it does now. And second, it cost a lot of money. And third, it took a lot of time for me because I live in a town that doesn't have a testing center that was approved. So I actually had to travel an hour away. So that took 2 hours out of my day to take the test. A lot of times I had to take off time from my real job to go take it because the testing facilities in my area were not open on the weekends. So when I saw that this new test was able to be taken online, I thought, you know what? I'm not due for my Recurrent test, but I would like to take it now. It's been out for a while, and I want to share my experience with my audience because I know a lot of people listening to this podcast are probably Part 107 pilots. And I was very happy with the overall experience. You go onto the website. I can probably link that website in the description of the show notes here. I thought it was just going to be a test, but when I got into the website, there's actually a little class you take before you take the test, and a lot of people would probably be upset about this because you've got to watch videos, you've got to read a lot of content material, and then throughout the course, you're taking little quizzes, and it'll tell you if you're right or if you're wrong. And I was actually excited about that because it was a good refresher, for one, about the rules in the drone industry, and two, the FAA had the opportunity to present some new rules that I'm excited about after passing this new Recurrent online test. In the past, if you wanted to fly at night, you had to sign up for a night waiver, something that my company signed up for, and I was successful in receiving. That took quite a bit of paperwork and a lot of back and forth with the FAA. And if any of you guys have dealt with the FAA, none of that paperwork or the overall process of getting the night waiver it wasn't super streamlined. And what I mean by that is they were very well educated and the rules were well defined on what they were asking for. But when you submitted your paperwork, you had to wait a long time before you got a response. And then when you got a response back, in my case, they wanted me to correct a couple of the issues I had with my proposal. And then I had to send it back and then wait again in order to get my night waiver. And if you pass this new test, you're actually able to do all of the stuff that I got with my night waiver without having to do the paperwork of submitting for a night waiver, which was very nice. In the past, you have never been able to do any flights over people, and that was a rule that from the very beginning, the FAA said this is probably something you're not going to be getting a waiver for. I actually did submit for my company to get a waiver for flight over people before this test came out, and I was denied because you had to have a parachute system at the time. Now it's broken down into different categories. The easiest category to fly over people from the testing that I took last night said that the drone had to be below 0.55 pounds. And that would also include prop guards, because you can't have spinning props falling into a crowd of people. That wouldn't be good. So at least with this recurrent test, there is some possibilities for flight over people, even though it is still kind of a hassle, and there are hurdles you're going to have to jump in order to fly over people. And I found way back when I was trying to submit paperwork for a flight over people waiver for my business, I didn't feel like I was losing any potential projects or any jobs with the restriction of flying over people. And so I decided at the time that I wasn't going to pursue it any farther. I think I would have been able to get it. You had to get a parachute system, and I talked with several companies that made parachute systems for my drone that would have had all of the necessary paperwork to go along with it as far as safety testing. But those parachute systems came at a large cost. Actually, in a lot of cases, the ones that I was looking at were more expensive than the actual drone. And so at that time, I decided, you know what, if I get a bunch of projects where I have to fly over people, I'll look into this farther. And if it's feasible, you know, if you're going to be able to make money with it, I would have definitely jumped on board. But still to this date, I don't think I've missed out on any opportunities for not having the waiver to fly over people. So I guess in a way, I'm happy I didn't pursue that any farther. But with this new test, there are some avenues without having to get that waiver. So that's an exciting piece of the puzzle. If you haven't taken your Part 107 test, you still have to go to a testing center the very first time. And that includes you have to study for the test, and I'd say you'd have to study for at least a lot of people maybe 1 or 2 weeks. I use Remote Pilot 101 as my study material, and I was very pleased with that course. The nice thing about that course is it's a one-time fee, and they give you the study material for the initial test, and then they gave you the study material for, at the time, the recurrent test, because at the time when that course came out, you still had to go to the testing center for the recurrent test. Now, after taking the test last night, it's fresh in my mind. Some of the things that are a little bit different is, I believe with this new recurrent test online, you have to score 100% on it. And it's, if I remember correctly, it's about 45 questions. And it's a lot more about the drone industry and the current changes in the FAA's rulings. I remember when I took the initial test the first time, I thought, man, this is a drone test, and there's really not too much to do with actual flying of a drone. It was very geared towards laws and regulations as far as airspace and safety of flight using your drone. So there was a lot of things about weather patterns, air classifications for airspace, a lot of legal stuff for drones. So that initial test, in my opinion, was a lot harder than this recurrent test. However, this recurrent test was a lot more specific and driven to give you a lot more information that's pertinent to your drone flights. And I was excited about that because it was the perfect amount of refreshing the stuff that you might not have used, even though basically every day in my drone business, you are applying all of these rules you learn through the initial test, through the recurrent test that I took at the testing facility, to this new recurrent test. But overall, very excited that I'm able to save a lot of time, save a lot of money for the future of my drone business. And it looks like the FAA is coming out with new rulings and new regulations to actually lighten up a little bit of their rulings that they had in the past. Now, at the same time, when I'm saying that, I'm thinking, oh boy, but you better wait and see what the remote ID final rulings come out as, because that could also restrict our industry quite a bit. But it's not all bad. I know if you guys have looked into the remote ID thing, there's a lot of exciting things about remote ID as well. I think that us drone pilots will like in the future. And for me, the main thing is safety. I know the number one thing I'm nervous about with my drone business is I want to be safe. I want to make sure every drone operation is by the books. And I'm hoping that with this new remote ID that it will cut down on a lot of people saying, oh, you know what? I don't have to take that drone test. I can just go to Best Buy. I can take the drone. If nobody sees me flying, I'm probably okay. And hopefully with this new remote ID, that will kind of get rid of that thought process for people thinking, we can just go to Best Buy and risk it as far as getting the actual license, because it is actually very important to get the license. Just because, I would recommend, even if you are flying recreationally, I would recommend going out and taking the Part 107 test, because there's a lot of rules and regulations and a lot of stuff that you probably wouldn't think about unless you actually took the course and took the classes in preparation for that test. And after taking the test, you'll have a whole greater appreciation for the safety of the drone industry as a whole. And another little side note, I talked about taking Remote Pilot 101, and I've talked to several people in the drone industry, and I actually, when I looked into it, I thought, you know what, I'm not going to spend the $100 or $200 to take the initial class with Remote Pilot 101, and I'm just going to look through the stuff that the FAA provides for the initial test. And I would strongly advise to take Remote Pilot 101 over just studying the documents that the FAA gives you, because I feel like with Remote Pilot 101, it takes what the FAA is giving you and it applies it to a real world situation, showing you why you're doing the things you're doing, and showing you why these rules apply to the drone industry. So I feel like if you just read the content from the FAA, you're getting an understanding of how to take the test. But if you take the class with Remote Pilot 101, you're actually getting an education that allows you to apply it to the real world. And that has been very valuable in my drone business. And I feel like the cost of that class it's about as cheap as you can get for the value you're getting. So I can't recommend that class enough. So in recap, for the drone industry, I'm excited on where things are going. News is coming out that the Mavic 3 is coming soon. We've seen a lot of big YouTubers talking about, it's going to be coming in the next couple months, and I cannot wait to see what that brings. It's already amazing to me, the technology they have in, the Mavic 2 Zoom, the Mavic 2 Pro, and I'm excited to see where the future, or see what the future holds for the drone industry, because I feel like there's endless possibilities. The future is very bright anyway. So, I also told you guys that I didn't want to just ramble on about a drone test the whole episode, but I did want to get that in there because it is such a big part of my business, and it's something that I'm very excited about, because every time I took the test, I thought, oh man, I'm so happy I do not have to take this again for 2 years. But after taking this new recurrent online test, I'm kind of excited for taking the test again in 2 years, just to see what the refresher course looks like and to see what the test looks like as well. One other thing that's a little bit different is they used to issue what looked like a license for the Part 107 when you took the initial test. And I think they are still issuing those when you pass your initial test. However, now when you take the online test, you actually just print off a certificate that you keep with you in your documentation, maybe with your pre-flight checklist. So if anyone asks you about it, you can show them that. And then you can print off a small card that you can keep in your wallet. So a couple changes there that are very exciting for the drone industry. One other thing I wanted to tell you guys about, a few weeks back, I talked about technology coming out that I was excited about. One of those items was the GoPro Hero 10, and I actually ordered that on Friday, and I am very excited to see how that is when I get it. I've seen a lot of reviews, and if anyone knows me, I do not make a purchase before watching hundreds of YouTube videos, and I say hundreds, and that's not an exaggeration. I read tons of reviews. I watch tons of videos, and still after that, it's tough for me to make a decision. So a few of the things I was thinking about when I was making the decision of the GoPro Hero 10 is I'm a very active person. I love the outdoors, and I don't want to take my Sony a6400 out kayaking with me or out in the rain or things like that. And I feel way more comfortable having a GoPro already, taking it out to do these things and hopefully bring you guys along for a lot of my other adventures. And hopefully there's going to be a lot of other content coming out with that. But my old GoPro was a GoPro Hero 3, and I thought, man, they're on the 10 now. Every single year since the 3, I've been thinking, oh man, it would be a good idea to get the new GoPro. But I figure enough time has passed, enough new features have come out that it is time. So I did get that on order. It says it's going to be here Wednesday. We'll see how that goes. I'm excited to try it out, and it's bringing back all sorts of other excitement. I remember when I got the GoPro Hero 3, that was revolutionary for me. That's probably one of the reasons I had this in my mind, that I wanted to become a content creator and create a podcast, that kind of thing, is because I was so excited about the GoPro and what kind of capabilities it provided me. I like to scuba dive. I was able to strap my GoPro to my mask and share my scuba diving adventures. I don't really have any of those on my YouTube channel. Maybe I should start putting scuba diving adventures on there. I like to metal detect in swim areas. I know many of you guys have heard of like D Almighty on YouTube, and I love doing that kind of stuff. I don't film it, but it is a lot of fun, and it's amazing what those guys can find, because when I come out of the water in my full gear, all my scuba gear, and I've got my metal detector and stuff, people, if they're on the dock, they usually come up to me and say, hey, did you find any treasures down there? And most of the time, it's just a lot of garbage. But that feels good, too, because a lot of times around the docks, there's nails, there's all sorts of stuff that shouldn't be down there. And I feel like I'm at least cleaning up the water, saving a bunch of people from getting some nasty cuts, walking on nails in the water. So it feels good to clean up the swim areas. It's always an added bonus and a fun surprise when you find something like maybe a quarter or something like that. But no big treasures for me yet. Hopefully that's coming. But some of the other things I liked about having the GoPro was the versatility of the mounts. I know I made a GoPro mount out of PVC pipe that I was able to stick down an ice hole and film ice fishing. I just saw a really clever GoPro mount that actually uses magnets, and you can strap it to your car in different locations. And that got me thinking, you know what? I've got a very strong magnet for magnet fishing. And I thought, you know what? I bet I could make one of those GoPro mounts for the outside of a car. And maybe I'll make a video on that if it's successful. Maybe it's going to be a terrible disaster and I'll dent my car or something. But if that's the case, you probably won't hear about it and probably won't see it. But if it's cool, maybe I'll share that with you guys. So very excited about the GoPro and what kind of content I'll be able to bring you guys. So yeah, I didn't really have a direction for this podcast. I just wanted to tell you guys about the things I'm very excited about in the drone industry and technology. I know I talked about in the past how excited I am about Apple keynote presentations, and today they had a special announcement where they were talking about their new MacBook Pro and their new AirPods. I was a little disappointed. I watched part of the replay of the presentation, and I thought, oh man, they've got the new AirPods. I bet they're going to be coming out with a new version of the AirPods Pro, which I absolutely love. I've got the old AirPods Pro, and I think I'm saying that right. Just the little earbuds that have the little rubber tips that fit in my ears. But I was actually kind of disappointed that these new ones are just the AirPods because, well, I would probably order them, but I've never been able to get those AirPods that have the hard plastic to be able to fit in my ears. And I feel like the only time I use AirPods like that is when I'm exercising or at the weight room. And those fall out of my ears, so they just drive me insane. The AirPods Pro, however, fit in my ears, and they stay there, which I love. They've been a great addition to my technology kit as far as when I'm working out or going out on a walk. Love using them for listening to podcasts like this. So I was thinking the whole time I was watching that, thinking, oh man, they're going to be announcing the new version of that, but they didn't. So I was a little bit disappointed about that. Very excited about the new MacBook Pro. However, I probably won't be getting it. I've got the old 13-inch MacBook Pro, and that served me well for many years. And now I, like you guys have heard, if you've listened to a lot of the episodes in the past, I've got the M1 Mac Mini, which I am loving. And I think I'm crossing my fingers. Hopefully that will serve me several years before I have to upgrade to another computer. But the cool thing about the MacBook Pro is it's portable. My Mac Mini in my little editing bay here, I'm not able to take with me on vacation. And a fun thing about going on vacation with a MacBook is you're able to go out, take your photos, come in, edit your photos on the computer, and it feels like you're a lot more productive on vacation. Now, I know on the other side of things, it's nice not to have all the equipment with you on vacation so you can just enjoy it. But maybe in the future, I'll be able to justify buying a MacBook Pro with the new version of the M1 chip. It seems like it's a little bit faster. I haven't got a chance to watch the entire presentation, but I'm excited to learn more about that. So maybe in the future, I'll talk a little more about that. But until then, thanks for listening. If you haven't listened to a lot of my episodes, feel free to go back and listen to all of those. I am loving all of your feedback. If you want to see the video version of this podcast, you can head over to Preston Jensen on YouTube, and most of my podcast episodes are going on to YouTube. I'm looking to make some more actual videos on my YouTube channel because I feel like just having a YouTube channel for just showing the live recording of the podcast might get kind of boring for some people. So I'd like to increase my subscriber count over on YouTube, and I think in order to do that, I'm going to have to make some standalone videos. So if you have any feedback for my YouTube channel or what you'd like to see, maybe some guests you'd like to hear on my podcast, reach out to me. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and also you can just check out my website, PrestonJensen.com, and from there you can see all of my content with my drone business as well. So thanks again for listening. I look forward to being able to talk to you guys next week.